After receiving the task to conduct a deep mountain rescue, we unexpectedly encountered a pack of wolves chasing us. To save his first love, my husband unhesitatingly left me in place and chose to take his first love away. I knelt on the ground begging him to take me with him, but he pushed me away. You know Fiona is most afraid of the dark, and you still want to harm her this way. Just hide well, I'll come back to save you. Until I was chased by the wolf pack and fell into the sea, I never saw my husband's figure again. The bloody scent left by the victims attracted the wolf pack. Staying in place would only mean waiting for death. The best choice was for us to scatter and flee, but there was only one torch to attract the wolf pack's attention. This meant that my boyfriend Ryan could only take one person away. His first love Fiona and I looked at each other. Ryan's gaze wandered between our two faces. Just before he made his decision, Fiona cried and knelt on the ground. Ryan, I have nothing left, only you. Almost instantly, Ryan helped Fiona up directly and held her firmly in his arms. Don't worry, I will never leave you behind. The moonlight cast my face in a pale light. The man I had loved for 10 years completely forgot his fiancé who was about to marry him in this life and death moment. Moreover, before this, I had already placed the medical examination report on the table. Because I had been injured for him before, I could not withstand any violent impacts. Even if I didn't say it, I thought he should know. But now. Fiona's eyes flickered for a moment, and she carefully pointed in my direction. Only then did Ryan look at me, with obvious disgust in his eyes. Scourges last for 1,000 years. Back then, you broke us up and forced me to abandon Fiona, now this is your retribution. I will never save you. I didn't miss the triumph in Fiona's eyes. In the darkness, I seemed to recognize her lip movements. Sarah, you're done for. After saying this, Ryan, as if remembering something, frantically dumped everything out of my bag until he snatched away my last possible self-defense item, the portable safety hammer. He said coldly, I hope you die here, so no one will know we were together before. I find it embarrassing. His shouts provoked howls from the wolves all around. In the critical situation, he directly embraced Fiona and left, leaving me alone on the silent grassland. With trembling hands, I took out the special miniature satellite phone from the inside of my underwear, but unfortunately, no one answered for the time being. The suffocating sense of death swept over my entire body. In the critical moment, I slapped myself to force myself to calm down and kept dialing other colleagues' phones with trembling hands. But unexpectedly, after the other party called back, they kept blaming me. Sarah, can you stop causing trouble? Besides, with your body in this condition, how could Ryan leave his own wife behind? No, he took Fiona away, even took my self-defense safety hammer. Please, help me, help me. The wolf howls were getting closer. Without time to think more, I could only keep shuttling through the jungle, and my throat gradually took on a bloody sweetness. The crazy secretion of adrenaline made my heart beat fiercely, but my mind was extremely calm. It turned out that our feelings over so many years were all my one-sided wishful thinking. Even when I risked my life to save him back then, it was seen as ulterior motives. He only loved his first love and never had any feelings for me. The words I didn't say were just an excuse for him to abandon me. So this time I didn't want to entangle with him anymore. In the critical moment, the satellite phone rang again, but I had already reached the cliff while fleeing for my life. The lead wolf impatiently bared its fangs at me, as if it would bite in the next second. It seemed like the roar of a helicopter came to my ears. I had no time to answer, just when I thought I could be saved soon. Suddenly, the sound of machine gun fire erupted within the wolf pack. The startled lead wolf leaped up and pounced straight at me. I quickly retreated a few steps but was still bitten on the right leg. The intense pain made me unable to stand, so I could only use my hands to slowly retreat. Until I could no longer hold on and directly fell off the cliff. In the second before falling off the cliff, I raised my eyes to look at Ryan on the helicopter, his face full of shock and doubt, and showed a bitter smile. Ryan, this time I let you go. After plummeting from the cliff, I was caught by a protruding branch. The intense pain caused me temporary blindness. When I could see clearly, I discovered that my calf had been pierced by a huge rock. After the pain reached its extreme, my consciousness had long become numb. This tree couldn't hold me for too long. I needed to save myself. Although below me was the vast sea, and the height was moderate, if I fell now, with this bloody scent all over me, I might become a shark's meal in the next second. Below, several lifeboats had gathered at some point. Through the satellite phone in my pocket, I learned that they were the other team members who were already safe. Seeing my situation so dangerous, their anxious voices carried tears. "Sarah, hold on, the helicopter is coming soon. Senior sister, you must not let go." Even the newcomers who had just joined the team valued my safety highly. But Ryan, who had shared a bed with me for 4 years, could directly abandon me. Only sourness remained in my heart. It seemed my judgment was really poor. Time passed second by second, but the rescue helicopter was delayed. The other colleagues waiting below were so anxious they cursed loudly, but I on the branch was already exhausted. My numb calf seemed to have drained all the blood from my body, and I couldn't control my trembling. With a crack-muffled sound, the branch could no longer support me, and I fell straight into the sea. The huge impact made me spit out a mouthful of blood instantly. The world's sounds were reduced to noisy buzzing. The cold seawater seemed heated by my blood. Instinctively, I wanted to paddle my arms to save myself, but during the fall, my arms had already broken from the impact, bent in an unnatural position. I had no more strength to struggle. Only when my body floated to the surface did I open my eyes as if in a final burst of energy. The rescue helicopter finally arrived, and rescue boats from the coast also sped over. The helicopter threw out the ladder, but Ryan on the plane didn't even spare me a glance, holding Fiona with a face full of heartache and softly comforting her. The colleagues in the cabin were stunned and cursed at Ryan nearby. "Do you have any heart? Sarah is so seriously injured, and you're pestering the team doctor to treat Fiona?" You see, any clear-eyed person knows Ryan was wrong. But Ryan coldly retorted, "If it weren't for her forcing me to abandon Fiona to save that mother and daughter back then, how could Fiona be reprimanded by the leader, unable to participate in rescue missions for years and get depression? This is all her own fault." The junior brother was so angry he laughed and directly pushed him. "Are you speaking human words? Fiona's matter has nothing to do with Sarah's sister at all. She totally deserved it." Ryan narrowed his eyes, seeming to remember something. "I remember now. When your brother was alive, he coveted Sarah and wanted to sleep with her. So, you like her too, want to be with her." The junior brother's big brother sacrificed himself to save people. Such words were almost like tearing open someone's freshly healed wound and sprinkling salt on it. He pushed Ryan away, wanting to directly rescue me up. But unexpectedly, Ryan grabbed the junior brother's arm. "If you dare to act, I'll push you down, just to fulfill you two adulterous lovers. Anyway, Sarah is so scheming, likes to act, just let her soak a bit longer." Fiona woke up at some point. She weakly pulled Ryan's arm. "Ryan, is Sarah back?" "She's your girlfriend, go accompany her quickly." "I'm fine. But, I feel so cold. Ryan, can you give me your jacket?" Ryan nervously pressed his lips to her forehead, comforting her with heartache. "You're running a fever and still thinking about her. Anyway, she's been acting from beginning to end, she knows very well and won't have any issues." Such a gentle tone. Ryan had never spoken to me like that. Once I dreamed of getting it, but now I find it disgusting. Since Fiona was suspended, every word she said was taken as gospel by Ryan. And whatever I said was acting. I should have guessed early on that Ryan hated me since then. The intense pain pulled back my thoughts. It was the rescue team colleagues who moved my body onto the helicopter. My body was still losing blood continuously, and the junior brother cried by my ear, "Sarah sister, don't sleep, we've come to save you." The blood coagulated into a small puddle at his feet. He looked as if his throat was stuck, his face instantly pale. Sister, how are you bleeding so much? Is it your old injury recurring?" "Captain, fly faster, she'll die from this bleeding." The sounds by my ear gradually became singular, becoming silent. In the second before coma, I seemed to see Ryan's face full of helplessness. When I regained consciousness, it was already days later. My body was full of tubes, even lifting a hand became a luxury. The instruments emitted beeping alarms, but in the doctors' and nurses' ears, it became good news. What a tough life, surviving such heavy injuries. They only reported the good news, casually mentioning in their words that I might have difficulty becoming a mother in the future. It's fine, with such a father, even if married and having children with him, it would be painful. I stayed in the hospital for 2 months, during which Ryan never appeared. My understanding of him was all from Fiona's Facebook. In just 2 months, she not only entered our shared home but even erased all traces of my life there. I never called him, nor thought of contacting him. Until Uncle Thomas and Aunt Grace, who came to City A for tourism, discovered the scantily clad Fiona at Ryan's residence. They pressed her about my situation, but Fiona was always weak. After saying a few words, she cried and fell into Ryan's arms. "Sarah, did you give my parents some bewitching drug? Otherwise, why do they target Fiona so much, hate her so much? If you dare to scheme against her again, I'll throw you into the wolf pack again." From these words, I knew Ryan had also been reborn. I didn't want to entangle with him, but looking at the worried uncle and aunt, I really couldn't refuse them. Since Ryan started dating, they had always been good to me. Moreover, after they learned about my parents' death, they treated me even more like their own daughter. When they saw the various injuries on my body, they were so heartbroken they almost fainted from crying. Aunt Grace pointed at the scar on my lower abdomen, loudly questioning the doctor why such a condition occurred. The doctor could only comfort her wholeheartedly. "Miss Sarah is still young. As long as she takes good care, she will definitely have children in the future." Aunt Grace fainted on the spot. I might have children again, marry again, but the one standing by my side will definitely not be Ryan. Now, I just want to stay far away from him, with no more interactions. The leader gave me a half-year vacation. I planned to go back to my hometown to sweep my parents' graves. Before leaving, I sent messages to colleagues as a farewell. That night, I sent a message to Ryan: "Tomorrow at my farewell banquet, come if you have time, give me the house keys. Since we've broken up, remember to clear your things from your ex-girlfriend's house." Since I planned to marry Ryan, my parents bought me an apartment here. Now that we've broken up, I'm even less willing to have traces of that scumbag and slut all over my house. At the farewell banquet, almost all colleagues attended. The colleagues who participated throughout that rescue gave me a big hug as soon as they saw me. The junior brother even asked me with red eyes if it hurt. After 3 rounds of drinks, Ryan arrived embracing Fiona. He reeked of alcohol all over, his shirt collar wide open, and Fiona's neck had obvious red marks as well. He threw the keys over as if bestowing alms. "With a bit of stinking money, you think you can be a princess, scheming against others every day, you cheap woman. If Fiona hadn't told me the truth, I almost got fooled by you. You've all been deceived. These are all this woman's bitter ploy. She wasn't injured at all, don't you know? There were people hidden in the jungle to save her." Ryan smugly took out the safety hammer he snatched from me and threw it on the table. "Luckily I took this, otherwise we'd be the ones in danger." Some colleagues couldn't listen anymore and directly stood up to punch Ryan. Fiona tightly held his hand and stepped forward to block him. "How can you hit someone?" Supported by the junior brother, I walked to them and calmly looked at Ryan's face red with anger. "Ryan, are you stupid?" He raised his hand to slap me, but luckily someone stopped him. "You think I don't dare hit a woman? You lying spirit, you deserve to die." I smiled self-mockingly, looking at Fiona's arrogant face, and took out the diagnosis record from my bag. "You haven't felt the pain of a thigh being bitten through by a wild wolf, have you?" I slapped the body examination report and hospital treatment sheet on Ryan's face at the same time, almost killing me. "Does that make you happy?" I let go, and the 2 reports fell down. Ryan staggered, quickly picked them up from the ground, his eyes showing a complexity I had never seen. "Impossible, impossible, Sarah, you must be lying to me. With your body already like this, why didn't you tell me?" "Tell you, then wait for you to kill me a second time?" I ignored Ryan's questioning gaze and turned to Fiona. "May I ask, you said there were people in the jungle to save me. Do you have evidence?" "These people, aren't they here to save you?" "Impossible." Ryan's face changed several times, finally turning pale. He stared fixedly at my face, trying to see any trace of lying. But these records couldn't be faked. Fiona wanted to pull him away but was shaken off. She instantly burst into tears, hugging Ryan's arm again and rubbing with her chest's softness. "Ryan, how could I do such a terrible thing? Sarah must be confused from illness. Are you going to abandon me again?" Ryan woke as if from a dream, seeming to remember something, looking at me with a gloomy face. "Stop playing tricks, isn't it just to make me abandon Fiona again?" "I will never abandon Fiona because of your few words. If it weren't for you in that rescue 2 years ago, how could Fiona be banned from activities for so long, only recently able to join us on missions?" As soon as these words came out, everyone's faces turned ugly. The captain stepped forward, looking at Ryan with full disappointment. 2 years ago, the forest fire, our rescue team 1 was fully mobilized. Ryan snorted coldly. "It was that time, she insisted I take her away first, saying someone would come to save Fiona later, but in fact, no one saved her, she ran out herself. So I say, this time it's her own fault, deserve." Before he finished, the junior brother suddenly stepped forward and slapped Ryan and Fiona each with 2 smacks. His eyes bloodshot, his gaze almost tearing Fiona apart. "You cheap woman, I'll kill you. Back then, if it weren't for my brother saving you, how would you still be alive to be this idiot's mistress? If not for saving you, how would my brother sacrifice himself? Clearly there were still people in the forest, but you told the rescue team there were no victims needing rescue. My brother was burned to carbon. In my opinion, the one who should die is you, not my brother and Sarah's sister." Ryan's gaze wandered between the junior brother and me. After a moment, he sneered again. "To splash dirty water on Fiona, you really stop at nothing." I knew that no matter what we said, he wouldn't believe it. So before the dinner started, I had already called the police, aiming to clear my name. And the deputy captain, who arrived late due to something, pushed the door in just in time, holding a thick folder and handing it to Ryan. "The file records of the forest fire 2 years ago, take a look. I really don't know what bewitching drug Fiona gave you, to wrong Sarah like this." Ryan stared fixedly at the folder in front of him, his brows and eyes scarlet. He looked at me disappointedly, at everyone present, his words carrying a choke. "Originally, I thought Fiona exaggerated things, but in fact, you're all bullying her. These things she never did, why are you framing her?" The deputy captain looked at him as if looking at a lunatic. Perhaps finding Ryan's words too absurd, he directly opened the file, pressed Ryan's neck, and forced him to read the report completely. Inside, it clearly recorded how Fiona, as the cleanup personnel in the rescue, abandoned the injured and only cared about escaping herself. She even snatched a companion's oxygen tank for herself. Senior brother's funeral was handled by me. I accompanied that mother and daughter to the hospital. If it weren't for Sarah pleading for Fiona after recovering, they would have called the police long ago. What framing, robbing things, only an idiot like you would believe it. Moreover, at that time, Sarah suffered a severe abdominal injury to save you. This time, the junior brother's voice choked up. "If Sarah's sister can no longer be a mother because of you, Ryan, what will you compensate her with?" Ryan felt as if falling into an ice cave. He ran madly to me, grabbing my arm and shaking it non-stop. "You're lying to me, right?" I gently brushed off his hand grabbing me and stepped back. These things, whether back then or today, I had explained to Ryan over and over, but he never believed me. He only believed what he saw, only believed Fiona. I put the keys in my bag, then took out the engagement ring he gave me and placed it directly on the table. Ryan's expression became even uglier. "Won't you try it on?" I calmly looked at Fiona. Originally, I thought the ring size didn't fit because Ryan remembered it wrong. Now looking at the necklace Fiona was wearing, I understood a bit. It turned out this ring was part of a set. Indeed, jewelry that originally belonged to someone else, how could it fit me? He held the ring, looking at me incredulously, as if my current behavior was so outrageous. Ryan stubbornly put the ring on my hand. The next second, the ring slipped off my finger. Just like our ethereal love like the wind. I picked up the ring from the ground, walked to Fiona's side, and put it on her finger. It fit just as I imagined. With things done, I made a gesture to see them out and said coldly, "Please, both of you, get out of my farewell banquet." Fiona's gaze darkened slightly. Suddenly, she held her arm and cried out in pain. "Ryan, my right arm hurts so much, quickly check if the wound has split open." The team doctor closest to her stepped forward in one stride, looking at her with a scoff. And everyone else crossed their arms, looking at her coldly. "I remember your wound is on the left arm. With that minor injury, if the doctor came a bit later, it might have healed already. Moreover, didn't you sprain your right ankle back then?" "How can a sprained ankle transfer to the arm?" the junior brother sneered. Ryan looked at Fiona with a face full of helplessness. In his heart, Fiona had always been soft and clingy like daughter, needing to rely on him. Unlike me, who could handle everything independently. People like us are often arrogant due to talent, so the weak Fiona was always a thorn in our eyes, a prick in our flesh. But he never thought that in dangerous outdoors, a rescuer's weakness is the greatest irresponsibility to the victims. All our strictness was just hoping Fiona would become a qualified rescue team member. Not a burdensome drag. "Alright, you two leave quickly. Since you believe I bullied her, I've also paid the corresponding price." I raised my wine glass, frowning, and had the deputy captain push them out. At this point, being in the same space with them made me uncomfortable. Only then did Ryan realize I really wanted to separate from him. His tone was unprecedentedly lost and panicked. "Just because of these things, you want to break up with me? Then what about our feelings over so many years?" I looked at him impatiently. This idiot, does he still think I can reconcile with him? Who would have thought? Fiona weakly climbed onto Ryan's shoulder. Her tone was slow, but her gaze toward me was full of provocation. "Brother Ryan, don't you like children very much, but Sarah can't give birth? I'm pregnant, we're going to have a baby. For me and the baby, can you cut ties with Sarah?" I held the wine glass, toasting Ryan from afar. "Congratulations, you're going to be a dad." This time, the distraught look on Ryan's face was no longer fake. "No, I won't leave." Ryan suddenly pushed Fiona aside and carefully walked to me. Tears kept rolling down his face. Kneeling at my knees, he instantly wet my skirt. The deputy captain wanted to drive him away, but he clung like a plaster, tightly grabbing my legs, his eyes full of longing. "Sarah, no, wife, I was just bewitched by that woman. You understand me the most, right? We agreed to get married after these things end, did you forget? Marriage? Last time I mentioned marriage, what did Ryan say? He said I, as a girl, didn't know self-respect at all, relying on those illusory loves, I could give myself entirely to others. He always laughed at me for being silly, saying I overestimated myself. But now, who is the one overestimating?" I gently kicked Ryan's shoulder with my foot, my high heel slowly moving up, poking his Adam's apple. "Ryan, bear everything like a man, don't make me look down on you." As soon as the words fell, the private room door was pushed open fiercely. Uniformed police walked in and slapped the arrest warrant on the dinner table. The police pulled Fiona up from the ground, took out handcuffs, and directly cuffed her wrists. "Miss Fiona, there is a case of intentional homicide. Please cooperate with the investigation." Fiona's face was ashen. She struggled and was unwilling to leave, instead rushing toward Ryan. "Brother Ryan, I did all this for you. How can you just watch me being taken away?" Ryan stepped forward and directly slapped Fiona. "What nonsense, shut up." He casually picked up a napkin from the table and stuffed it into Fiona's mouth, with a strong warning tone. Fiona struggled to pull the napkin out of her mouth, looking like a homeless puppy, pitifully gazing at Ryan. "Brother Ryan, you promised to protect me. Now, are you regretting it just because of this woman?" She still wore that pitifully delicate expression. But this time, Ryan wasn't as soft-hearted as before. He stood firmly by my side, repeatedly apologizing. "Sarah, it's all my fault, can you forgive me? If you're willing, after you recover, I'll immediately hold a wedding with you, we'll get the marriage certificate." Before I could make a mocking expression, Fiona directly broke free from the police's restraint, crying and slapping Ryan. "You said you loved me the most, otherwise, how could I do these for you?" After saying that, she looked at me again. I felt Fiona's words had implications. Just as I wanted to ask more, Ryan blocked me. "Officer, please take this murderer away quickly. My wife has just recovered. I don't want her to be too sad because of this." The police nodded at me and soon used force to take Fiona away. I looked at Ryan suspiciously. But seeing his frank face, it always gave me the illusion that I had misunderstood something. "I can explain the child in Fiona's belly, I can explain anything. The appearance I once most longed for, it seemed I now possessed. Now it seems, I don't even know who is more pitiful between me and Fiona." "Sarah." I thought. Ryan wanted to apologize, to say he was wrong in entangling with Fiona. As long as I reconciled with him, perhaps he would make Fiona abort. But I didn't want to give him this chance. "Shut up, get out." I closed my eyes wearily, only hoping this farce would end soon. When I returned from ancestral worship in my hometown, I heard from colleagues that Ryan was already preparing for the wedding with Fiona. He spent a large sum of money to pay Fiona's bail. Although uncle and aunt didn't quite agree, for the sake of the child in Fiona's belly, they had to nod. I thought this matter was finally settled, but then I got a message from Fiona. She was acting all coy and sweet, sending over several wedding photos with Ryan, and asked me in a girly voice, "Sis Sarah, you've planned several weddings, could you help me decide which one looks better?" A cold smile appeared on my lips, my tone absent-minded. "My wedding dress back then was personally designed by Ryan, I guess you don't have that." The phone hadn't hung up yet, and the quarreling sounds over there suddenly rang out. The Leong family found this matter too embarrassing, and despised Fiona for not being as rich as me, and didn't want to hold the wedding. They wanted face, but Fiona was determined to slap my face, unwilling to keep low-key. "You still have her in your heart, right?" What she got was only Ryan's silence. Fiona was probably furious. She roared out of control, "Didn't you say Sarah has nothing better than me except money? I almost killed for you, and you don't want to marry me?" The phone hung up accordingly. My ears fell into an eerie silence. I suddenly thought of the half-sentence Fiona didn't say. Were those wolves in the jungle really done by Fiona alone? I quickly called the junior brother, "Help me with something." At that time, Fiona insisted that I had prepared backup in the jungle, so Ryan could abandon me so easily. She thought I was a fool and wouldn't investigate what she said. But why should I let go of someone who almost put me to death? How many such things had happened in Ryan and Fiona's careers? Ryan wanted to throw all the faults to Fiona and perfectly hide himself, which was simply impossible. Ryan and Fiona's wedding proceeded as scheduled, perhaps to embarrass me. They even sent me an invitation. Uncle Thomas and Aunt Grace found it embarrassing and didn't attend the wedding at all, but Fiona's parents were dressed in jewels, so arrogant when seeing me that I could only see their nostrils. "Yo, my daughter's defeated rival is here, letting you attend the wedding is giving you face, understand?" Fiona just wanted to show off something, but soon her face changed. "Sarah, you." Her voice was too loud, causing several small thugs who just entered to directly lock onto the sound source. They quickly stepped forward, bowing obsequiously to Fiona and Ryan. "Sister Fiona, Brother Ryan, when can you settle the remaining payment for us? Recently, the heat is too high, we need to go hide." Looking at my smiling but insincere expression, Fiona lay back and directly fainted. Ryan fake smiled, wanting to send them away first. "What unreliable people did you find, actually coming to cause trouble?" Fiona was still in that wilted appearance, not sure if really uncomfortable or pretending. But hearing Ryan scolding, her tears rolled down her cheeks, looking pitiable. Amid Fiona's cries of pain, the family wanted to carry her to the hospital. Just at the hall entrance, a mother and daughter wearing veils directly blocked them. When Fiona saw that woman's face, she screamed and directly fainted. Blood slowly flowed from between her legs. This time she really miscarried. Ryan ran over in small steps. Even as a man, he was scared unsteady by the mother and daughter's faces. I stood stunned in place, exchanging a glance with the junior brother from afar. How did they come? The next second, I only heard the woman's hoarse voice, the executioner who caused me and my daughter to be disfigured. Do you also deserve happiness? Ryan stood there trembling all over. After a long time, he said, what does this have to do with me? He wanted to leave, but I tightly grabbed his arm. This is the proof of you and Fiona's love. Don't you dare face it? Go quickly, go. I want to leave here. Fiona struggled violently in her family's arms. The team doctor quickly took a sedative from the medicine box and injected it into her body, and only then did she calm down. It seemed not pretended at all. Ryan had a distraught face. He sat dejectedly aside, helplessly covering his face. He had no idea why things turned out like this. I was just about to mock him when suddenly a segment started playing on the big screen. In the video, Fiona was naked, lying in Ryan's arms. The two were intimately discussing how to put me to death. The whole venue was in an uproar. Fiona's parents, who were arrogant just now like defeated dogs, secretly took Fiona and left the venue. My tears couldn't stop falling. I just suddenly remembered that once before, Fiona sent me intimate photos of her and Ryan to show off. Because of this, Ryan and I quarreled fiercely at the time, but he insisted it was someone else's AI face-swapping prank. Before, he could righteously say he and Fiona were just colleagues, and he usually just pitied and cared for her. But these substantial evidences had already exposed his true colors completely. The phone rang. It was Fiona's voice. I pressed the speaker button, and her voice came from the receiver. I was really too stupid, Fiona cried and laughed, sounding crazy. It's all because he coveted your house and inheritance, asking me to help him get rid of you. So I deliberately sprinkled powder to attract beasts on the road. Even without the wolf pack, there would be other beasts to kill you. As for those people hidden in the bushes, they were all helpers Ryan found, aiming to put you to death. Ryan's face turned white. He instantly screamed. You're talking nonsense. I never did such things. Fiona laughed miserably. Back then, I was afraid you'd betray, so I left evidence long ago. Ryan just wanted to pounce over but was restrained by the junior brother with handcuffs. Someone in the crowd called the police. The police arrived soon and handcuffed Ryan. Before leaving, Ryan looked at me in collapse. Sarah, can we still reconcile? I sneered and didn't speak. After all, I don't have the hobby of picking up trash. I just hope this matter ends quickly so I can return to my work position. Not long after, I received the notice that the rescue team fired Ryan and Fiona. Not only because these two conspired to harm me, but also because this deep mountain rescue was originally a farce directed and acted by Fiona herself. Those so-called injured, after being sent to the hospital, had no wounds on their bodies, and hadn't even engaged in any intense exercise for this. Under the team doctor's proof, these people were also sent to the police station for occupying public facilities. During the internal review, the captain discovered that the distress call at that time was answered by Ryan. He didn't ask any basic information, just hearing Fiona's cry, he wanted the whole team to go rescue. But that day, clearly it was trapped people in another area who needed rescue. Because of his ulterior motives, the entire rescue direction was wrong, causing that distress caller to almost lose their life. All these were collected as evidence by the junior brother and submitted separately to the superior department. He said, I saved him and his brother back then. What he did now was just repaying my kindness, and more so hoping the bad people could receive real punishment. The search and rescue department published announcements in newspapers and online. The whole internet was shocked. Especially the mother and daughter who were almost abandoned by Fiona during the forest fire that year, directly responded below. As a search and rescue team member, not knowing to rescue others but only self-preserving, if it weren't for Miss Sarah saving us back then, my daughter and I might have lost our lives long ago. Someone who can discard his own wife's life just like that, I dare not work with such a person again. This comment directly rushed to the top of the hot search list. And Fiona, once the flower of the rescue team, was cursed bloody. Originally, due to her condition, she wasn't strictly controlled by the police, but now her phone had long been blown up by netizens, with abusive words never stopping for a day. There were even previous victims who wanted to sue Fiona, saying her irregular operations at the time caused them severe harm. This time, I finally nailed them completely to the pillar of shame. On the day the case went to trial, I sat in the plaintiff's seat with other victims. Watching Ryan and Fiona accusing each other like mad, it turned out that in the face of interests, love was never worth mentioning. Intentional injury, intentional homicide, plus the extremely bad influence caused, this sentencing would only increase, not decrease. No one saw when Fiona hid the dagger, only when Ryan covered his wound and fell to the ground did everyone hurry to restrain the already mad Fiona. She had gone crazy, perhaps she didn't need to bear criminal responsibility for harming Ryan. But for us victims, she would still be given corresponding punishment. Because when she did all this, she was still a normal person with autonomous consciousness, there's no reason not to sentence her. I had no curiosity about their outcomes, I just returned to the team to continue focus training. On the day they were sentenced, I happened to receive the notice to study abroad. After I returned, the prison contacted me, saying Ryan wanted to see me. I refused. Later I heard that half a month later, one night, Ryan used a secretly hidden plastic bag to commit suicide in prison. When I learned this news, I was receiving commendation from the Superior Department. I think the future should be like the blue sky before me. After the rain, the sky clears.